Are they saying, the leaders of Google, Facebook, Yahoo? I mean, are you talking to them?
Well, I tried to. I had a brief conversation with Larry Page in which he said, well, I don't think this is a very interesting problem, and that was about that. But further down in Google, there are a bunch of people who are wrestling with this. I think the challenge is, I talked to one Facebook engineer who sort of summed it up quite well, and he said, look, what we love doing is sitting around and coming up with new, clever ways of getting people to spend more minutes on Facebook, and we're very good at that. And this is a much more complicated thing that you're asking us to do, where you're asking us to think about sort of our social responsibility, our civic responsibility, what kind of information is important. This is a much more complicated problem. We just want to do the easy stuff. And I think that's what's sort of led us to this current place. I think there are also people who see the flip side of that and say, this is one of the big, juicy problems in front of us, is how do we actually take the best of sort of 20th century editorial values and import them into these new systems that are deciding what people see and what people don't see.
Talk about how much money is being made off of this. And I mean, just this neutral term of personalization.
Right.
It sounds so benign. In fact, it sounds attractive.
It sounds great.
It's geared and tailored for you. What could be better?
Right. And it does rely on the sense of a sort of cozy, familiar world online where your favorite website greets you and goes, oh, hey, Eli, we've teed up all of these articles for you. Welcome. It feels very good. But, what's driving this is, in some ways, this is the driving struggle on the internet right now between all of these different companies to accumulate the biggest amounts of data on each of us. And Facebook has its strategy, which is basically ask people to tell Facebook about themselves. Google has its strategy, which is to watch your clicks. Microsoft and Yahoo have their strategies. And all of this feeds into a database, which can then be used to do three things. It can target ads better, so you get better targeted ads, which honestly I think sometimes is fine if you know that it's happening. It can target content, which I think is much more problematic, that you start to get content that just reflects what it thinks you want to see. And then the third thing is, and it can make decisions about you. So one of the sort of more surprising findings in the book was that banks are beginning to look at people's Facebook friends and their credit ratings in order to decide to whom to offer credit. And this is based on this fact that if you look at the credit ratings of people, you can make predictions about the credit ratings of their friends. It's very creepy, though, because really what you're saying then is that it would be better not to be Facebook friends with people who have lower credit ratings. That's not really the kind of society that we want to be building, particularly.
Well, even more frightening, obviously, is once all of this personal information is gathered, it saves the government and its ability to surveil its population a lot of work, because basically the private companies can gather the information, and all the government has to do is issue the subpoena or make the call that for national security we need this information. So in essence, it doesn't have to do the actual surveillance. It just has to be able to use it when it needs to.
There's a funny Onion article that has the headline, CIA rolls out very successful new Facebook program, implying that the CIA started Facebook to gather data. And it's funny, but there is sort of some truth there, which is that these companies do have these massive databases, and the protections that we have for our data that live on these servers are far less protection than if it's on your home computer. The FBI needs to do much less paperwork in order to ask Google for your data than it does to come into your home and look at your computer. And so increasingly, so this is sort of the downside of cloud computing, is that it allows more and more of our data and everything that we do to be available to the government and for their purposes.
In a democracy, but it's in an authoritarian state as well.
That's right. I mean, it's a natural byproduct of consolidating so much of what we do online in a few big companies that really don't have a whole lot of accountability, that aren't being pushed very hard by governments to do this right or do it responsibly. it'll naturally lead to abuses.
Google Inc. announced yesterday that they have launched a bid to dominate a world in which the smartphone replaces the wallet as the container for credit cards, coupons, and receipts. The mobile app is called Google Wallet. How does this fit into this picture?
Well, it's just another, the way that Google thinks is, how can we design products that people will use that allow us to accumulate even more data about them? So obviously, once you start to have a sense of everything that people are buying flowing through Google's servers, then you have way more data on which to target ads and target content and do this kind of personalization. You know exactly how to slice and dice people. And again, in some contexts, that's fine, actually. I don't mind, when I go on Amazon and it recommends books. They're obviously not very good recommendations sometimes, but it's fine. But when it's happening invisibly and when it's shaping not just what you buy, but what you know about the world, I think, it's more of a problem. And if this is going to be sort of the way that the future of the internet looks, then we need to make sure that it's much more transparent when this is happening, so that we know when things are being targeted to us. And we have to make sure that we have some control as consumers over this, that it's not just in the hands of these big companies that have very different interests. So
you have a powerful force, Eli Pariser. You were the head of MoveOn.org. Now you're the chair of the board,
yeah,
of MoveOn.org. So this MoveOn has millions of people it reaches all over the country. What will MoveOn do about this?
Well, there's sort of this dance here because basically MoveOn takes on the issues that its members, want to take up. So I've been very careful. I don't want to sort of impose by fiat that I wrote a book and here's now we're going to campaign about this. But there are campaigns that we're starting to look at. One of them, I think, that's very simple, but actually would go a significant way, is just to have a way of signaling on Facebook that something is important, even if it's not likable. Obviously, this is sort of just one small piece, but actually, if you did have an important button, you would start having a lot of different information propagating across Facebook. You'd have people exposed to things that maybe aren't as smile-inducing, but we really need to know. And Facebook's actually considering adding some new verbs. So this could be a winnable thing. It won't solve the whole problem, but it would start to remind these companies that there are ways that they can start to build in, some more kind of civic values into what they're doing.
Any sense that in Congress, any of the politicians are paying attention to some of these issues?
Or understand this?
Yeah, there are a few that have been really attentive to this. Al Franken, in particular, has been very good on these data and privacy issues and really pushing forward. It's obviously challenging because a lot of the Democratic congressmen and women get a lot of money from these companies. Silicon Valley, certainly the Obama administration and Obama got a lot of support from Silicon Valley. So they don't totally want to get on the wrong side of these companies, and they feel like the companies are on the side of good and on the side of sort of pushing the world in the direction that they want it to. It means that we don't have as good congressional watchdogs as you would hope, but there are a few good ones, and Franken in particular has been great on this.
Well, Eli Pariser, I want to thank you for your work and for writing The Filter Bubble, What the Internet is Hiding from You. Board President and former Executive Director of MoveOn.org, which at 5 million members is one of the largest citizens organizations in American politics. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report, back in a minute.